very honored today for the Pro Football Doc podcast to have a special guest and friend and coach, head coach Norv Turner. And actually, I thought of you because this is the day after Father's Day and had a nice Father's Day weekend. And with your son, Scott, coaching in the league and otherwise, and of course, Drew's in town here, I was like, oh, I got to reach out to Coach and have him come on. So thank you for joining us on the Pro Football Doc podcast.
No, it's great to be with you, and we have been friends for a long time. That makes this extremely easy, and we had a great Father's Day. Scott and Drew and my son-in-law, we all went to the U.S. Open Sunday, and it was amazing. We were on the 15th green when Rom lipped out, and then he birdied 17 and 18 in just incredible fashion.
So across the weekend with Scott in town, how much football did you talk? Over, under 5 minutes?
Well, it was over.
Over. You did still talk a lot of football. You can't help it.
But you know, I was back there for a couple of weeks. I actually went to 3 or 4 other practices, and I have access to some of the practice tape and all that stuff. So we spend a lot of time talking ball. So we didn't do it much here. You know, it's fun having him involved, and obviously my friendship with Ron Rivera and the group of guys on that staff. So I kind of feel like I'm a distant member of that group. I keep in touch with all of them.
So obviously, for those who don't know, Scott's the OC for the Washington football team with Ron Rivera, and obviously that relationship has been close for a long time, including starting in San Diego, right? Ron was here.
Yeah, you know, we people forget about that, but Ron had gotten let go by Lovie Smith in Chicago, and when I got the job in San Diego, I had known Ron a long time, and I had never worked with him, but certainly were friends. And we had the opportunity to hire him, and you know, he ends up later becoming our defensive coordinator, and that catapulted him into the head coaching job in Carolina. And he's done a great job.
Yeah. So do you miss football now or no?
You know, I thought I did, and I was back there in DC for a couple of weeks. I went to, I think, 4 practices, and I said, you know what, I don't need to do this anymore. You know, I'm 69 years old, and your body, it takes a toll. And you know, I love the game. I love the interaction with the coaches and players, but as you know, it's a grind, and it's a grind. You got to totally commit to it.
Yeah, and let me ask you this question. I think things have changed too in terms of the way football is done. As a head coach, look, you've been everything, right? Obviously, Super Bowls, offensive coordinator, head coach, multiple places. Today, as a head coach, what percentage of your time is as, for lack of a better word, CEO or organizational versus PR versus X's and O's?
Yeah,
or staff management. I guess
you have to. I mean, it starts to me as head coach with staff management, and you have to have a great staff. And I've always been lucky. I felt I had good coaches wherever I've been, and I think in most cases we got the most out of the players, you know, that we had. But the hardest thing now, I think, for being a head coach is there's just too many people who want to have their input. There's you know, owner, general managers, assistant GMs, or now they have the personnel people under it, and everyone wants to get their fingers in it. And we all know that too many cooks, it just doesn't work out. So I think it's a more challenging job to be a head coach in the league now than it was in the past. And then I think you'll see the head coaches with the most autonomy, the Pete Carrolls, obviously Belichick, Harbaugh in Baltimore. I can go on, name 5 or 6 more. They're the ones that consistently have the most success, because there is one direction, there's one voice, and it really comes down to the players know who they're answering to. And I think that has a lot to do with the better teams in this league.
Yeah, and you know, and famously, New England has always had the smallest coaching staff, right? Smaller, even they take it to new levels, smaller, tighter quarters. So along that line, would you, any regrets? Would you do anything differently?
I think there's always things that you look at you would do differently, but from a big picture scheme, I think I trained under the best. John Robinson, I worked for him for 16 years. He was a unbelievably successful head coach in college and in the NFL. He doesn't get credit he deserves. We were in the same division with the 49ers with Montana, Bill Walsh, and Eddie DeBartolo, and their budget was their payroll was about twice what ours was at the Rams. And in the 7 years I was there, we won the division twice. We went to the championship game twice. Unfortunately, played the 85 Chicago Bears and the 89 49ers in the championship game. Those are two tough teams to beat. But he was a great mentor to me. And then obviously getting to coach with Jimmy Johnson, coach for Jimmy Johnson. I think I learned how you go about doing things. There's always little things you do differently, but from a big picture, no, I think we had the right approach.
So what are the little things you might do differently nowadays versus before, or things that you would change?
Well, the biggest thing I think is, when you go into a place, you just got to when you go into a place, you got to make sure that people that are doing the personnel, selecting players, signing free agents, making decisions on your own free agents, who you're going to keep, who you're going to let go, that everyone's on the same page. And as I said, that there's one voice and one man setting the direction, and everyone responds to it. It's the frustrating things, and you don't want to. I'd never ever want someone to think you're making excuses, but when during my period, over a 3-year period of time, we let Darren Sproles leave, we let Vincent Jackson leave, we let Michael Tolbert leave. Those guys were touchdown makers. They all at different times in the season scored over 10 touchdowns, and you have to keep your best players. You have to make tough decisions, but you do have to keep your best players, and that's just a general response to what you're saying. Keeping the right players and making those kind of decisions is critical.
Well, I mean, I was lucky enough to be a fly on the wall a little bit. As you know, in the draft room, there was the adult table, the big 10-person dining room table where you and the GM and assistant GM and ownership was at. And there was the head trainer and I at the kids table in the corner. And I remember when you're in that draft, and I'm not going to name names or anything, you mentioned it, but I remember you're saying, that kid is not Darren Sproles. We cannot, you're not substituting is not equal. Darren is special. And, what's funny is I still communicate with Darren, and I think on a podcast here, we even talked about it. And I don't think Darren knew how much you were in his corner ever. I said, look, I was in the draft room when he said, no, this kid is not going to be Darren Sproles.
I was on the phone with Darren, and he wanted to stay, and we're trying to get, I'm trying to get our guys and convince them that, hey, this guy's important to us. It's important to our quarterback. There was a feeling that he probably didn't have much time left. He played 10 more years. It's one of those things. It's unfortunate, but those things you have to get right.
Yeah, no question. So you've been through it all. You've been everything in football with all these different teams. What do you think your legacy is?
The one thing I take a lot of pride in, and I got, speaking of Father's Day, I got texts from 3 or 4 young coaches wishing me a happy Father's Day and thanking me for giving them an opportunity to start their career and have a career. And like I said, what people did for me, teach you how to coach, how to become a pro. I tried to do that with coaches, and I certainly try to do that with players. I think the development of young players, I think that's something I take a lot of pride in that we've done. A guy like Darren Sproles, a guy like Phillip Rivers, go back through my entire career. Alex Smith 20 years ago, I
Mhm.
coached in his second year, and we can go on and on and on. I think it makes me feel good that those guys are appreciative, and when you see them or when you have contact with them, they reach out to you and say, "Hey, Trent Green, thanks for the things you were able to give me and help me to become a better player, a pro."
In the end, about the people, right? I
No,
agree with
no
that.
question. And it gets lost because when you take over in terms of record, when you take over a team that's 3-13, there's a process that's going to be involved. I did that in Washington. I did in the Raiders. So there's more losses on the record than I'd like to have there. But when we came into San Diego, we won the division 3 years in a row. We went to the championship game and coached that game with a bunch of injured players. So
He's looking at me there. Right?
well, it wasn't your doing. You kept them upright and on the field. That's what's amazing. We had Gates playing with a bad foot, and Phillip with a knee surgery on Monday, and all those things. But we won a lot of games, and I'm proud of what we did in San Diego. There's a couple of games I wish would have turned out differently, but that's part of the sport. You see that with everyone.
One thing I find amazing: you live in San Diego, you live in Del Mar, and arguably you're by regular season record, you're the most successful San Diego Chargers head coach ever. I mean, there's a lot of good names from Sid Gilman to Bobby Ross and Marty and others. But for some reason, does it bother you that like people for some reason don't say Norv was like, if you ask the average fan on the street, I don't know that your name comes up as the best head coaches. I thought you did a great job, but
well, it's that when the expectation is what it was when I got here, and the way everything went down when I got here, I understand that people are going to have different opinions. I know going into year 4 or 5, they did a statistical breakdown, and with Phillip and with Gates and with Vincent and the crew we actually had more yards, more touchdowns, all those things than Eric Coryell did in that same time frame. So we did a lot of good things, and I'm not gonna. It doesn't matter to me right now. I love coaching here. I love the interaction with our players, and we kind of, had a group that closed in and put all the negativity outside there, out of our minds, and just went and played football. And I think our guys did a lot of good things.
Well, one of the things that, okay, I don't know if you know this is just my thought, and we're friends enough, I can just say whatever. Here's what I was told. People have always said, for example, look, everyone loved Marty, right? And he's an English major, and he commanded that press conference and whatever. One of the things that I think I want to tell people from the inside about you that I observed all these different coaches, the players in the locker room love Norv. Norv fired up players and did all the things the head coach that I wasn't in on every meeting. Everything the head coach is supposed to do with a lot of personality and fun. And I think that's the side that I wish you would have let out more, like in the public. And like Norv is one of the funnier guys I have ever met. Yet you didn't show it publicly.
And I just probably it's the way I was brought up, and I was a little bit more old school, and I was taught at a young age in coaching, and particularly when I got to the NFL, I was taught this by players and coaches, that locker room and that group, it was really, really a special group, and it was something that you wanted to be exclusive. You wanted to be your thing. You don't have to entertain everybody on the outside. You don't have to have the what you're saying, the great press conference or whatever. It was about that closeness, that tight knit group you had, and I think it made everyone appreciate it more. And I used to tell the guys, hey, this is our deal, and we don't need outsiders in here. This is our deal, and let's make it our deal, and let's make it the best we can.
You weren't trying to win the polls.
No, I've never really worried about that, and it's the polls end up being real fickle. You know, you can sway them every way you want, and then
we'll share a fun story. I don't think you'll mind. So Coach, he commands the room, he's got authority, but he's got his jokester side. So we used to kid around here and there, some fun stuff, of course, getting work done. And so I don't forget what year it was, but you had an emergency appendectomy and no one really knew about it. And yet you coached that Sunday and we got you emergency appendectomy on a Friday, coached that Sunday and kept coaching, and no one really even knew about it. So we do that, and a couple weeks later, you're sitting in the head athletic trainer's room. I still remember this. You probably don't remember this story. And you go, "Come here, Doc. I want to talk to you." And I know that Norv look, and I start a little smirk on my face. And you literally said to me, "Wipe that smile off your face. I'm serious." Okay. So just he and I, we go in the room, and he says, and you said to me, "I've got a bone to pick with you." He goes, and you said to me, "If you would have let my appendix burst, we still would have lost these last 3 games and everyone would think I'm a genius and liked. Instead, you saved me, and now everyone thinks I'm a horse's ass because we lost the last 3 games, then I'm mad at you." Yeah. You remember that conversation?
I do. I do. And that was early in the year. We actually ended up having a really good season that year, but I remember the conversation, and that's the thing about the season's long, and if you lose a couple games and and you let it affect you going into the next week, it can really be bad. And I think particularly early, for the most part, when we had adversity, our guys overcame it.
Well, that's my little anecdote. That wasn't the only one. There's a lot of those, and that happened throughout the locker room. And I guess my point is, and I've always said this on Pro Football Doc and everything, if something doesn't make sense from the outside, it's just because those on the outside don't have all the facts and factors. Like the locker room was very united and united behind you because you corralled everybody, but the public perception was, well, he didn't give us a good press conference, and he didn't, give that fiery post-game or speech or what have you. Meanwhile, in-house, it was a different story. And,
well, the one thing about the locker room and people, when, that term, someone will say a player's coach, or they liked him, and then someone's going to immediately say, well, they liked him because he wasn't hard on them or he didn't demand. The one thing I found out, the players, they respect you and they like you and they perform for you if they believe you can help them be better. And I can go through a total list, whether it be a Jeremy Clary, some of the guys on defense that we felt, we were getting the most out of with Coach. They were able to have careers. And that's the one thing I always talk to players about. We want to win. We want to go to the playoffs. We want to win a Super Bowl. But individually, you want to have a career. And you look around at the guys that play 8, 10, 12 years, they treat this as a business. They come to work every day. They're professionals. They have an approach with what they do. And that's something that we always coached and stressed because, these young guys, they got a chance to have a career. They make so much money now, they can set themselves up for life and have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. All right, I won't keep you too long here. So final question for you. What happened to that restaurant that you already had a name for?
Yeah. Well, we know
I'll let you tell that story.
We know the infamous play against Baltimore, 4th and 29. Unfortunately, they've been showing it on some websites over the last year. Baltimore checked the ball down and converted a 4th and 29, and that play put them in the playoffs. And actually, that's the year they won the Super Bowl, I believe. But I used to tease the guys, these 4th and 29s, I'm gonna open a restaurant in Del Mar and call it 4th and 29, and
because you could say,
well,
he said because that's the play that fill in the blank got him fired.
Yeah,
the defensive play. Whether it was clipping on blocking the back, it clearly was on
clipping. He didn't make the first down, and it's incredible because there's about 5 players that took the worst angles you've ever seen on a single football play. Obviously, it was a great run by Rice, but it was It was a poorly officiated play.
So for years, Norv has joked and said outwardly that he's got the name of the restaurant. It's called 4th and 29. So if you ever see that, that's the.
Well, I'm not going to get in the restaurant business, and thank goodness in Del Mar, the building I used to say we're going to put it in has a nice restaurant in it, and people enjoy going there. So it's out of my hands now.
All right, Coach. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate the time here.
Always. I appreciate everything you did for our guys. And, I think of the guys who you took care of. I think of Philip, and then the guys who took care of themselves. Everyone wants to say, the surgery, taking care of a guy is, it's all in the surgeon's hands. Once the procedure's done, it all comes down to the player and how committed he is to rehabbing and doing the things he has to do to perform. And Philip Rivers is the best example you could ever have, because he was operated in mid-January and was ready for minicamp in May, and had an extensive surgery that we all know what it was, and no one's ever worked harder to rehab than Philip. And then he took it another step and he changed his entire body, and that's why he played another 12 years or 15 years after that.
Players are saying, Philip, you're faster now than before the surgery. I tried to take credit. No, it was his workout regimen and things. But I would say this, Coach, a good outcome. Look, in order to make a field goal, you need the snap, the hold, and the kick. Of course, the blocking too. To me, the snap is the injury, because if it's a really bad snap, you might not be able to do anything. The hold is the surgery, and the kick is the rehab. And you got to do all three in order to make the kick. Any one of those three that's out of whack, and you're not going to make it.
Yeah, but the one thing I'll always say is, with what you did, the guys who did what they were asked to do after the surgery performed and continued their careers and ended up having successful careers. And that's what you want from a medical standpoint.
Well, one final thing before we go. One of the things that I regret about my time in the NFL, besides not winning a ring when we were supposed to, I have to credit you a little bit. So what I've been doing now, Pro Football Doc, I've been looking at injuries from the outside, right? Before, I would see a guy on the field, on the sideline, in the locker room Monday after an MRI, and then go look at film. Now I look at film and I don't have the answer, but it's like playing Jeopardy. But one of the things when I was in the NFL, I was concentrating on the 53 trees in my backyard, so to speak. I didn't know what was going on in the forest. And you said something to me that started the seed, and I've tried to do this now with Pro Football Doc. One time, people have always asked me, "Do you ever get into analyzing other teams?" When I was in the NFL, I said, "Not really. That was my job." But one time, remember, you asked about Dante Culpepper when he was with the Dolphins after an appendectomy. Is this guy going to play this week? I'm like, no. But that actually has now spawned me for years now, like injury analytics in terms of what a guy can or cannot do in a certain game. Not season-long tendencies, but in this game because of the right knee MCL or what have you. And that's an idea that I continue to work on and really kind of spawned from your
Dante. Well, we would talk. I mean, when we get the injury report, I'd either talk to James Collins, our trainer, or talk to you, and here's this guy, and here's what they're saying. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? And it's always a guessing game because you're never sure about the injury reports. But it gives you a little understanding of what the guy's capable of doing and how they're going to perform.
There's more there. Like a lot of times, a guy's there, but going in that they're more of a decoy.
Sure.
Or, in the famous example, Julio Jones in that Super Bowl against the Patriots, half his route tree was gone because he couldn't one plan and cut, right? And can shield, stay to one side or play off center, et cetera, and favorite one side or the other.
Question.
But anyways, all right, Coach, thank you. Appreciate it.
It's awesome.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right, we'll be back for part 2 of the Pro Football Doc podcast, and thanks to Coach Turner.